Hello, everyone. Welcome back into another episode of Inside Gophers Nation. I'm your host, Dylan Callaghan-Croley, the publisher at Gophers Nation of the On3 Network, covering Golden Gophers athletics. The wait is finally over. At the time of recording, just a little over 24 hours away from the Minnesota Golden Gophers starting their 2025 season against the Buffalo Bulls at Huntington Bank Stadium on Thursday night at 7 p.m. It should be a great atmosphere. It's a gold out at Huntington Bank Stadium. I'm really excited to see the energy that Minnesota fans bring here this week, as well as what this new look Minnesota Golden Gophers team looks like. A lot of new faces on both sides of the ball, on the field and on the coaching staff. So definitely a lot to talk about there, and a lot to talk about in this game in general. But before we dive into today's game, there's never been a better time to join Gophers Nation. We have a great deal going on now. Join Gophers Nation now for $1 your first week and enjoy complimentary year access to the Athletic included with your membership. That's a great deal. That's a deal you cannot beat, a deal you will not find anywhere else. So come on down and get your Golden Gophers news from us on On3, and then head over to the Athletic and get all your other news, NFL, MLB, NBA. They all got you covered over there at the Athletic, while we have you covered with the Golden Gophers. Never been a better deal. So what comes with that Gophers Nation subscription? You get access to our premium message boards to interact with some of the best Minnesota fans out there, as well as myself and our staff. You get in-depth breakdowns, recruiting breakdowns. Minnesota gets a commitment. We break down their game shortly after the commitment. We break down the commitments, senior seasons, and the tape they put out. We break down each and every game following the game. We'll go over what went wrong for the Gophers, what went right. So dedicated team coverage, in-depth breakdowns, complete recruiting coverage year-round. From signing day to signing day, we have you covered on the recruiting trail. And plus, you get access to the best national staff in all of college football. Andy Staples, Brad McMurphy, Pete Nakos, Ari Wasserman, Josh Pate. The list goes on and on. It is a fantastic national staff, and that's not even our recruited national staff. Never been a better time to join Gophers Nation right now. Get access to us, get access to the On3 and the Rivals national staffs, and don't forget, join Gophers Nation for $1 your first week and enjoy a complimentary year of the Athletic included with your membership. You can join by going to www.on3.com/sites/Gophers-Nation. You can also find that link in the description below. But let's get into this game on Thursday night. Excited to be talking football once again. Like we said, 7 p.m. kickoff time at Huntington Bank Stadium. Television, FS1, Tim Brando, Devin Gardner, and Josh Sims are on the call. You can listen to the game on radio, of course, at KFan 100.3 and on Sirius XM 84. Mike Grimm and Daryl Thompson will have that game for you on KFan. And then Minnesota, an 18.5 point favorite here. Over under set at 44.5 points last time I looked on BetMGM. So Minnesota is a sizable favorite here against the Buffalo Bulls and head coach Pete Lembo. Set the scene here for Buffalo a little bit. The Bulls are coming off a 9-4 season in Pete Lembo's first year there in Buffalo. Is a really, really nice first year for Lembo, who took over for Maurice Lindquist after the 2023 season. Lindquist led Buffalo to a 3-9 record in 2023. Very quick turnaround last year from 3-9 to 9-4. And while the Bulls aren't favored to win the MAC this year, they should be one of the better teams in conference once again this year. They returned a lot of talent from last year's squad and addressed some of their needs in the transfer portal as well. You look at their schedule last year in Buffalo. The big one that stands out, obviously, is a 38-0 loss to Missouri. That was the only Power 4 opponent they faced last season. They also dropped games to UConn, Western Michigan, and Ohio. Otherwise, put together a really, really nice season, obviously, en route to that 9-4 record. Some other notables. This is the third all-time matchup between the Gophers and the Bulls. The Gophers have won each of those last two matchups, including a 2017 matchup on August 31st, which was PJ Fleck's first game as the Golden Gophers head coach. That was a 17-7 win. The two programs also met in 2002, a 41-17 win for the Gophers. Overall, Minnesota has faced opponents from the Mid-American Conference 40 times in program history. Minnesota has won 35 of those previous matchups with 4 losses and 1 tie. Under PJ Fleck, the Gophers are 5-1 against MAC opponents, with a 14-10 loss in 2021 to Bowling Green being their only defeat. Buffalo has had success against a Big Ten team in the past. Out of their 12 matchups, they have one win, a win against Rutgers in 2018. But in general, the Bulls have struggled against Big Ten opponents, with their last 4 matchups having an average margin of defeat of 24.75 points per game. Quickly on head coach Pete Lembo, second stint as a head coach at the FBS level after being the Ball State head coach from 2011 through 2015. He was also the head coach at Lehigh and Elon, where he had success at the FCS level between 2001 and 2010. That Ball State era of Pete Lembo football was solid, but did tail off a little bit at the end before he resigned to take a job with the University of Maryland. After that, he spent time at Rice, Memphis, and South Carolina before taking the head coaching job at Buffalo. And as we went over, they had a pretty solid season last year, led by a very good offense that averaged 28 points per game. Their defense did struggle a little bit, allowing over 26 points per game. The Bulls returned 16 total starters this year, and I believe out of those 16 starters from last year, 15 are starting according to their Week 1 depth chart, which we will go over here shortly. But yeah, plenty of experience on this Buffalo team returning, which is going to be something important to remember heading into Thursday night. This is a team that is not going to be impacted by the atmosphere, by the situation. They've played major opponents like this before. They played Missouri last year. I believe they played Wisconsin the year before as well. So this is a Buffalo team that has experience in these sort of games and won't be intimidated by the atmosphere. We'll go over some of those key players for Buffalo in a little bit. Obviously not going to go as in-depth on the Golden Gophers. If you're a Minnesota fan listening to this podcast, I'm sure you're familiar with all the offseason changes. Golden Gophers brought in a heavy group of transfer portal commitments this offseason, starting a running back with A.J. Turner to back up. Darius Taylor gives them a home run threat there. Wide receiver, they brought in 3 guys, Logan Loya, Javon Tracy, and Malachi Coleman. Javon Tracy projects as more of an explosive guy, somebody who can stretch the field for the Gophers. Loya is going to project well to be in a slot / safety valve for Drake Lindsay. And Malachi Coleman, kind of an X factor, has the potential to be a really dangerous wide receiver, but will be a depth piece this fall. On the offensive line, they brought in 4 transfers. Kali Tafe is battling Nathan Roy for the starting left tackle spot. And then on the right side of the offensive line, they brought in Marcellus Marshall, a transfer from UCF, and then Dylan Ray, a transfer from Kentucky, who will be starting at tackle. Ray did start previously with Kentucky at guard, so he's moving to the outside, which will be interesting. They also brought in Purdue transfer Jaden Ball, who projects to a rotational depth piece in 2025. Defense side of the ball, Gophers really wanted to address their depth on the defensive line, brought in 3 transfers, and Rushawn Lawrence, a defensive lineman who could play both inside and outside. Stephen Curtis, a defensive end, and Mo Amanode, a defensive tackle. Now, Amanode there, the Purdue transfer, does not appear like he's going to be ready to go in Week 1, and it seems unlikely that he'll be ready to go anytime soon. We did not see him at all at fall camp when it came to practicing. He did miss all of spring camp with Purdue with the back ailment, so if that same back injury is acting up now, it is not a great sign for the Purdue transfer. Rushawn Lawrence will be backing up Jalen Redding inside. He had a really nice season for Stony Brook last year, while Stephen Curtis, a Southern Illinois transfer, will look to provide some production off the edge there behind Anthony Smith. In the linebacker room, they added Jeff Roberson, Oklahoma State transfer, who had a really big season in 2024. He does not look likely to be a starter to start the season for the Gophers, but should still see plenty of playing time as part of their two deep potentially. And then in the secondary, they brought in a pair of cornerbacks, John Nestor from Iowa and Jalen Bowden from North Carolina Central. So those two will also look to make their mark this fall. Nestor is projected to be a starting cornerback for the Gophers on Thursday night, while Bowden is battling for a rotational role. The coaching staff also saw quite a few changes this offseason. Only one change on the offensive side of the ball. That is Jaden Everett coming over from South Alabama to be the new running backs coach, following Nick McKissick-Luke's footsteps. McKissick-Luke now with the New York Jets. On the defense side of the ball, though, plenty of changes. Obviously, the top defense coordinator is now Danny Collins, who takes over for Corey Heatherman, who served as the DC last year, as well as the linebackers coach Heatherman now with Miami. Additionally, on the defense side of the ball, Dennis Darren Carter is the new defensive line coach. The new rush ends coach is C.J. Robbins. Kevin Kane takes over the nickels and outside linebackers coaching spot, which was left after Mariano Sori-Moran moved from that role to the linebackers role. So those are the changes on the defensive side of the ball for the Gophers coaching staff. So plenty of new faces on the sideline, both for the players and coaching staff in general, entering the 2025 season, which, it's going to take a game or two for all those coaches and new players to gel with their new surroundings in a game atmosphere as well, which will be something to watch. But, this is why these week one games against quote-unquote cupcake opponents are always advantageous for programs. It allows you to get all the kinks out of your system before having to really step up in competition against teams that are going to be a little bit more dangerous. That teams that you have to bring your A game against in order to beat. That's not to say Buffalo is not a strong opponent. Buffalo is a very good opponent. The Gophers are going to have to play quality football on Thursday night, or a upset is very much possible. But this is not necessarily an opponent that the Gophers have to bring their A game against to necessarily win, compared to maybe a Cal or a Rutgers that they'll see in a couple weeks. Let's jump into the keys to the game for Minnesota. As you can see right here, pretty simple 5 keys to this game. We're not going to spend a whole ton of time on them. Number 1, clean, smart football. The Golden Gophers should not let Buffalo hang around in this game. This is a good Buffalo team. If you let them hang around, they're going to make this game a tied one to the finish. Minnesota has to play, doesn't have to be mistake-free, but you got to limit the mistakes. Limit the penalties, win the turnover battle. Minnesota, I believe, 6-0 last year when winning the turnover battle. Do those 2 things, and you should win this game going away pretty easily, right? So, clean, smart football, no drops, limit the mental mistakes in general. Those types of things tend to keep group of 5, group of 6 teams in these sort of games. And a team like Buffalo that's smart, well-coached, experienced, they'll take advantage of any mistake you make. And if you keep this Buffalo team around too long, this one could get tight going to the end. 2, run the ball, 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 run the ball. I don't know how many times I can say it. You don't have to do anything special against this Buffalo defense. This is not a particularly great Buffalo defense. It was back half of the country last year in almost every category. They were okay against the run and much more weaker against the pass. But this is Drake Lindsey's first game at quarterback. This is a week 1 opponent which you should beat by multiple scores. If there's 75 plays in this game, it should be 50 runs at least for Minnesota. They don't have to all go to Darius Taylor. You have a really good running back room there if you're the Golden Gophers coaching staff. Use Darius Taylor, get him 15 to 20 carries. Use A.J. Turner for another, 10, 15 carries. Use Cam Davis for 10 carries. I mean, if you got 50 carries in a game, you give 20 to Darius Taylor, you give A.J. Turner another 15. That's 40 carries right there. So say you give Darius, 20 carries. AJ and Cam both 10. You got 40 there. You got another 10 to go around to maybe Fame, Ajaboy. You give another couple to Taylor or Davis. But I think Minnesota should rely on this running game in week 1 and week 2. Just run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. There's no need to do anything special. You have one of the best running back rooms, not just in the Big Ten, but in the country. Take advantage of that running back room and run the ball down people's throats. That's what I think Minnesota should do on Thursday night against Buffalo. Keep Drake Lindsey throwing the ball only 15 to 20 times. He shouldn't throw the ball any more times than that, in my opinion, on Thursday night. 3, keep it simple. Now, this is really kind of more so in the passing game for Drake Lindsey. Keep it simple is all about getting him in a rhythm and building his confidence and comfortability as the game progresses. Don't take unneeded shots downfield early on. Let him build confidence. Let him get his feet under him, both literally and figuratively, and let him just gradually, blanket on the word here, but gradually, become more involved in the game through the pass attack. That's why I'm saying run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. Also, obviously, run the ball a lot is going to help with the play action, and that's going to also make Drake Lindsey's life a lot easier. Drake Lindsey doesn't need to put up a ton of big numbers this week against Buffalo or next week against Northwestern State. Yes, you want to see him be efficient. You want to see him limit the turnovers. You want to see him post upwards of 60+% completion percentage if possible. But he doesn't need to throw for 500 yards. He doesn't need to throw for 6. If he throws for 425 and 2 or 3 touchdowns over the next 2 weeks with 1 interception, I think that's a major win through his first 2 games. So, offensively, clean, smart football, and that includes keeping Drake Lindsey upright in the pocket, keeping him clean, keeping the pressure off him, let him get comfortable. Run. Rely on that rushing attack. And then 3, keep it simple in the passing attack. Make it easy for Drake Lindsey. Easy passes. Let's not get anything too complicated in there. Let the experienced wide receivers in Javon Tracy, Logan Loya, Lameek Brogdon use their ability to garner separation to get easy completions for Drake Lindsey. That includes tight end Jamison Gears. If they do that, the offense will be just fine on Thursday night. Defensively, this is a good Buffalo offense, but it's not an offense that I think is going to overly be trouble for Minnesota. I think this comes down just slowing down running back L.J. Henderson. He had a really fantastic season last year in 2024, over 1,000 yards total on the ground, and had a couple hundred receiving yards as well here. Had 1,078 rushing yards last year, 10th best in Buffalo program history, and averaged 124 yards per game over the final 5 games of last year, at 5 yards per carry last year throughout the season. The Buffalo offense goes as L.J. Henderson goes. Taquan Robertson is an experienced quarterback. He's going to have some success, but this isn't a passing attack that I would be overly scared about if I'm Minnesota. It's going to come down to shutting down L.J. Henderson. If you shut down L.J. Henderson and this rushing attack, it's going to make Taquan Robertson and that Buffalo passing attack's life a lot harder. And that kind of leads into a semi-second point defense here, is just get pressure on Robertson. In the past, he has struggled with that type of pressure on him. So if the Gophers can get consistent pressure on Taquan Robertson in the game, it should lead to quite a bit of success. And shutting down the rushing attack and making Buffalo go one-dimensional would also help with that quite a bit. And then finally, the 5th key to the game, stay healthy. This is a week 1 game you should win by multiple scores. Like I said, the spread is 18 points. I think we're going to have Minnesota cover that spread. Stay healthy. This is not the type of game where you want to lose somebody to a season-ending injury, especially if it's already a blowout situation and you could debate if that player should be on the field at that point or not. You don't want that type of situation to happen. So if you're Minnesota, get out to a lead early, build that lead early, and get the starters out of the game by midway through the third quarter at the latest. I know PJ Fleck and the coach staff is going to want to get his starters reps and make sure they're ready to go for a couple weeks against Cal, but get them out of this game, prevent an injury when it's when the risk is not worth the reward. I think is going to be big in this one. So yeah, build an early lead, get the starters out early, and then just enjoy the rest of the game from the sidelines if you're a Gopher starter. And that also will allow the depth to get quite a bit of playing time in the third quarter and fourth quarter. And over these first two games, that should be something we see quite a bit considering the opponents, especially next weekend against Northwestern State. So those are my 5 keys to the game for Minnesota. All right, let's dive into the Buffalo players to watch in this game. We already talked about one of those guys. The number one guy there on the list is running back Al-Jay Henderson, one of the best running backs in the group of 5 last season for Buffalo. Fantastic running back. 204 carries last season, 1,078 yards, 9 touchdowns, plus 19 receptions for 238 yards and an additional touchdown. As we mentioned, he dominated down the stretch last year for Buffalo. If you look at his stats, over the last 5 games, he averaged about 125 yards per game, had 4 games of over 100 yards, including 185-yard performance against Kent State. He did struggle last year against Missouri, notably 7 carries for 26 yards. And if you look at the 3 losses for Buffalo last season, he was kept to 2 carries for 4 yards, 7 carries for 26 yards, and 14 carries for 81 yards. His role did grow over the course of the season, but he will go. The Buffalo offense will go as far as he goes, as we did mention. So he'll be one to watch, and he is why we have him as our biggest key to the game defensively for Minnesota. Next up is wide receiver Victor Snow, who also spent time at Nevada in the past, but Snow now in his, I believe, 3rd season with Buffalo. Last season, really solid season, 55 receptions, 651 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Had a solid game against Purdue last year with 4 receptions for 41 yards. Notably, he did not crack 100 yards last year. His high last year was 8 receptions for 99 yards and a touchdown. So he doesn't rack up a ton of yardage in usually over 1 or 2 receptions. He only averaged about 12 yards per reception last year. But this is a wide receiver who was a consistent target last year for the Buffalo offense. Recorded a reception, at least 1 reception in all 13 games. Had multiple receptions in 12 of 13 games. And had 4+ receptions in 9 of 13 games. So, I mean, he's going to be a consistent target for quarterback Taquan Roberson on Thursday night. He's going to be their top guy at wide receiver. Talking about Taquan Roberson. 4th school Roberson is now on his 6th year of college football. Previously spent time at Penn State, UConn, and Kansas State. Appeared in 6 games over 3 years at Penn State. Only had about 29 pass attempts there. Played 2 years at Connecticut, including 1 year as a starter in 2023, where he was solid. 197 for 338, a 58.3% completion percentage. He also had 2,075 passing yards that year and 12 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. So did do a solid job that 1 year. He was a starter. He did transfer after 2023 to Kansas State for last season, but only played in 6 games, completing 3 of 7 passing attempts. For his career, 56.4% completion percentage, 2,188 yards, 13 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. He has struggled with pressure in the past, which is another reason we had, getting pressure on him as one of the keys to the game for Minnesota. Not much of a threat with his legs, but he is a smart quarterback. Does do a good job of limiting the turnovers overall, with just a 2% interception rate for his career over 375 passing attempts. So should take care of the football on Thursday night against the Golden Gophers defense. But we'll see how much pressure Minnesota can get on him and perhaps disrupt that timing, his processing of the game as well. So we'll have to keep a close eye on that. Switching to the defense side of the ball, we have one of the best FCS, group of five, group of six, whatever you want to call it, linebackers in Khalil Murdoch, also called Red Murdoch. Last season, 156 tackles, including 73 solo tackles. He had 17 tackles for a loss and 2 sacks. Now, notably, he wasn't the only Buffalo defender with over 100 tackles. They also had Sean Dolak, All-American, with 168 tackles. Tackles are always hard stat to kind of truly gauge because it is a little bit of a subjective stat. It's up to the official score at each game of who gets credit with a tackle. Some schools are more liberal on who gets credit with an assisted tackle than others. Buffalo may be one of those schools. That being said, Murdoch is still a very impressive linebacker and somebody that the Gophers' offensive line is going to have to be very much aware of throughout Thursday's game. He doesn't get many sacks, just 2 sacks last year, but he does get in the backfield often with 17 tackles for a loss last year in 13 games. Finally, we have strong safety Solomon Brown, who, as we mentioned, is a former Golden Gopher from 2019 through 2021. He's going to be a starter for the Bulls on Thursday night. Last season, played in 13 games, 66 tackles, 2 tackles for a loss, 1 interception. Played pretty well throughout the course of the season. Was graded pretty well by Pro Football Focus. A little bit of a revenge game factor here. I know he probably doesn't have negative feelings towards the Minnesota program, but leave no doubt in your mind. This is a game that Solomon Brown is going to be ready for. He's going to be up for, and he's going to want to go into this game on Thursday night and, make a big play or two and say, hey, see what you're missing? So I expect Solomon Brown to be energized in this game. I expect to see him flying around the field when he's on the field, and I wouldn't be surprised if he comes up with an interception or a forced fumble or something like that. He's a good player. Good players often show up in games like this, scenarios like this. So I'm going to be very curious how Solomon Brown plays on Thursday in that kind of revenge factor is not the greatest term for it, but it's a type of a revenge factor type game for him. Now, before we wrap this up, just want to go over some key storylines I'll be watching and then ultimately my pick for this Thursday night's game between Minnesota and Buffalo. First, storylines for the game. I'm going to be keeping a close eye on Drake Lindsay. Not how does he perform overall, but how does he handle pressure in this game? How does he handle maybe any exotic looks that Buffalo throws at him? How does he handle his duties at the line of scrimmage? Those are going to be the things that I'm going to watch closely in this one. 2, how did the new transfers fare in their first game? How does Darius Taylor play? AJ Turner play? How does Javon Tracy, Logan Loya, the offensive lineman, John Nestor, how do those guys perform in their first games as Golden Gophers? 3, special teams. Coming into the season, the punting and kicking duties are still a little bit of a question mark. At punter, you feel a little bit better. You got Tom Weston and Brody Richter both competing for that punting job. I think both are going to be able to do a quality job no matter who wins the punting job. But, practice is one thing and games are another. So will the success from practice carry over to the game in that aspect? But also, more importantly, the kicking duties. Last year you had, Brady Dannenberg. Last year you had Dragan Kasic as your kicker. He struggled, and he is a pretty consistent kicker, right? This year you got Brady Dannenberg and Daniel Jackson competed for that kicking spot. True freshman in Daniel Jackson. Dannenberg hasn't had a ton of success in his past at Syracuse. Had some, but not a ton. He had a few misses last season. And then, Daniel Jackson had a okay senior season at Alexandria and is now in his true freshman season. But, kicking is a very tough position in college football. And there's, I would say maybe no position is more impacted by the player's mentality than the kicker position. So I'm going to be very curious to how that kicking job goes. Coming into the season, and then I think it's going to continue throughout the season. At kicker, it's going to be. I think PJ Fleck isn't necessarily going to be, shy on pulling pulling a kicker if needed, if they're struggling and getting a new leg out there to try to find something. But we'll see what happens. This will be the first test for that special teams unit as a whole. I think the punt return games, the kick return games are going to be fine. Punting, I think, is going to be fine. But kicker is really the big one, and it's the scary one for Minnesota because there's a lot of coin flip games on this schedule. If the kicking game struggles this year, Minnesota, could easily see a 9-3 season go to 7-5 or 6-6 if there are some kicking struggles. So it is definitely one that is going to be worth keeping a very close eye on, both here in Week 1 against Buffalo and throughout the early parts of the season, and depending on what happens potentially throughout the season. Now it's time to make a prediction for Thursday night's game. Minnesota versus Buffalo. Gophers, as we said, according to BetMGM, 18-point favorite here, 18.5-point favorite, depending on when you look. I'm going Minnesota to cover in this game. I think they're going to win this one 34-13. I think they're going to be up pretty comfortably here in the third quarter. Get the starters out of the game. Get those backups and rotational players some playing time in the third and fourth quarter. I think I have Buffalo add in a field goal or touchdown potentially late in this game to make the score a little bit closer than it was. But yeah, I'm going to go Gophers 34-13 to start their 2025 season, get off to a 1-0 start, and turn their attention to Northwestern State next Saturday. I think should be a very good game on Thursday night. A great atmosphere at Huntington Bank Stadium, and we'll have to wait and see what happens. We'll be back here after Thursday night's game for a recap of Minnesota's season opener against the Bulls, and we'll talk to everybody real soon. Be sure to drop your prediction for the game in the comments if you're watching us on YouTube. Feel free to do so on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or if you're subscribed to us on Gophers Nation, do so on our boards. But that leaves it today for me here on this preview of Minnesota's season opener against Buffalo. Until next time, everybody, enjoy the season opener. Enjoy this first week of college football, and we'll talk to you real soon.